Welcome to our Streaming Media West 2018 discussion on best practices for education and training video. Today, using video as a training tool both inside and outside the classroom is table stakes for any educational institution. The tools and processes for creating, managing, and delivering live and on-demand content keep evolving, getting easier to use, and providing more functionality. In the midst of this cultural and technical change, what are some of the best practices among schools that have been successful? In this session, our panelists will tell you what works for them and recommend crawl, walk, run implementation steps. But first, audience, before we dive in, let me ask you a few questions so we better understand who's in the audience and who's listening and where you may be coming from. So by show of hands, how many of you create training videos today? Looks like about half the audience. How many of you work for or with educational institutions? Oh, about 80% of the audience. How many of you are using streaming today? All right, that looks like 100%, which I would expect here. How many of you enable distance learning scenarios? Looks like about a third. How many of you are involved with delivering live lectures via streaming? Okay, about a third again. How many of you are supporting flipped classroom video delivery? All right, that is a minority in this audience. Okay. Sorry, flipped, the question from the audience is, what is flipped classroom learning? And that is, just really briefly, the idea where you are delivering video to students outside the classroom, and when they come to the classroom, they're actually having a discussion typically about what they saw, but you're actually, instead of lecturing to the students while they sit there, you kind of do that offline. They can do it whenever before the class, and then come into the class and actually talk about what they learned. And then the last question is, are you supporting web conferencing as part of delivering courses to students? And that looks like about a fourth of the audience. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so one thing I want to note before we jump in is we want this to be interactive, so if you have questions, rather than save questions to the end, by which point you may have forgotten or we may have shifted context away, feel free to shout out or raise your hand at any point, ask the question so we can just engage with our panelists right away and make it part of the conversation. And after you've stated the question, I'll repeat it so we capture it for the cameras. All right, well, so let's get started with introductions. My name is Chris Knowlton. I work at a small company called Microsoft, working on a product called Microsoft Stream, which is designed for enterprise and education, delivering content within the firewall. Funny side note, in 2007, I did my first panel with streaming media. It was called YouTube for the Enterprise. This product is basically YouTube for the Enterprise. Okay, that's enough about me. Gentlemen.
I'm Mitch Donovan. I'm a producer for online courses at Duke University. And I've been there for about 6 years. Basically, we started 6 years ago putting out massively open online courses, and then we've been refining that approach ever since.
My name is Jonathan Schwartz. I'm the Director of Video Productions and Operations at the USC Sol Price School of Public Policy. And we focus on trying to enhance our brand through video, regardless of what mechanism that is, whether it's promotional video, live event, that kind of stuff. We are also a quasi-business unit at USC, meaning we can actually work for other departments on campus. So we're kind of like a production company incubated by the Price School.
I'm also from USC on the other campus, which is the Health Sciences campus. I'm at the Keck School of Medicine, Gary San Angel. I run the distance education video technology component for the Department of Preventive Medicine. And I'm also work closely with the SCCTSI, which is a Clinical and Translational Science Institute. And so my role is basically managing a distance education studio called the Soto Studio, and we do face-to-face courses as well as online courses, and we're moving into a lot of Facebook live streaming, which I'll talk about later in this meeting.
Great, so a good variety of different scenarios that you're addressing. Thanks. Okay, so let's start off by, in terms of questions, why don't you just briefly describe the streaming media usage scenarios you work with in your role today and the high-level goals that guide it. And then we'll dive into the details in a minute, but let's just start high-level. Take a minute or two and just tell us, what, I mean, you've already touched on some of them, but maybe just explain a little bit more, like what are your key 1, 2, 3 scenarios, and what are the high-level goals that you hope to achieve by enabling those scenarios?
Great. So my main focus is on offline production and making those videos accessible to people online. And I think the huge focus from us right now is just making the video as scalable as possible. Every one of our courses probably starts at about 50 videos. They're each about 10 minutes. And we probably put out several dozen courses a year. So there's huge amount of video that we're producing. And each one of those videos is produced to a point where the instructor is we're not just putting a camera in the back of the classroom. They're coming into a studio, sometimes reading from a script or referring to slides that we built for that specific video. So we're trying to find approaches that can minimize the redundancy in creating so much video at that scale, and trying to find other solutions along those lines. Some of the other streaming services that my department gets into is we do have traditional lecture capture that is a bit more automated. We have another system that does some digital rights management, and we have some digital signage and some interactive tours that people can put together and share with others.
So for us, I think we're probably split, I don't know the right ratio, but a good portion of us is offline production, more with the focus of trying to create like a promotional video or a training video. I know some of you guys had your hands up for that. Or we have faculty sometimes miss conferences when you do a presentation with them and animate their data. Or maybe it's a marketing campaign video for the school or some new center. So that's one component. And we can drill down if you want. But from a stream perspective, we are focused on trying to make large live events scalable and professional quality looking when streaming. We use variety of steps, but we'll go to Facebook Live, we'll go to Livestream or Vimeo. Actually, we just switched to Vimeo. Brightco for a major event, and basically our goal is to make sure the live stream is as basically operate like a full-on television show. It's professional produced, good quality audio, and it's going to get out there and get there successfully. Our metrics for success up until now have been just that the stream is high quality, and that people have a good experience with it. My department is starting to move into more social media marketing, so we're starting to play with live clipping tools. I think that's the direction we're going into. We'll be taking the stream and trying to advertise it while broadcasting it by extracting certain clips and stuff. But essentially for us, and I think another thing we're eventually going to move towards is right now we're more set to do large-scale events with a large footprint. Like we have how many cameras there, we have a switcher, we stream to whatever platforms appropriate, but we are starting to also look at now for the future in terms of how to get events streamed with only one camera to make sure that a more smaller event can still get up to Facebook Live. So we are starting to look at different devices that can pop on top of the camera, like a pterodactyl video or something like that can just instantly stream right up and do a single solitary event. We know we won't have as much control. We know there won't be fade outs, fade ins, lower thirds, that kind of stuff. But it does increase the visibility of our events. And almost for everything, we are exclusive. Facebook Live is always now a component with another destination, depending on what the event calls for.
Okay, great. We are actually the largest department at the School of Medicine, but within School of Medicine are their own silos. Largely, School of Medicine is a media site shop, but we've, over the course of 6 years, moved away from that. We've moved to using Vimeo as our archive and our ability to store a number of videos and to kind of disseminate and send our videos out to our Pearson, who manages our MPH online program. But mainly, our move now over the last 6 years has been looking at the analytics and seeing that 30-minute, 45-minute videos, lectures, even within the studio, are not really being looked at. And so we are trying to use Facebook Live, Facebook pages, basically create campaigns and shorter, condensed videos that'll attract people to maybe look at these lectures in their full context later. But we're really challenged by the fact that, like a number of our students, are still not engaged in looking at some of these longer lectures, even as highly produced as they are. So Facebook Live allows us for that level of interaction, and I'll kind of explain some of the tools that we've been using to keep people engaged.
Great, thank you.
All right, so now let's look a little bit more at some of the main usage scenarios that you each own, that you've been talking about. You sort of touched on them high level. What I'd like you to do now is walk us through the key pieces of the architecture. So what does that workflow look like from a 1,000-foot level, all the way from the camera that captures that original content to the viewer watching the video? Mitch, we'll start with you. Let me throw a slide up here for you, and you can take a look at it and sort of walk us through what that looks like.
Sure. So we have, there's a variety of different platforms that we're working with here. But in this case, typically what we're going to do is someone is going to start in the studio, typically using one of the HD camera, although we do film everything in 4K for our production, although we typically deliver it in 720p or 1080p. That filming in 4K allows us to do a lot of editing and post-production where we can keep it wide and then zoom in later to without any loss in resolution. But then we also have services that allow students to record from their phones or whatnot. But we're going to start with that 4K video typically, and we're going to match that with a screen capture of some slides that we might create in Keynote or PowerPoint. That's going to get fed into Final Cut where we put that all together. And then we'll use a review tool that is Look At. It's not listed here, but that Look At tool will allow the instructor that is producing this video with us to add some comments and some other feedback out on specific things that they would like to change on that video. Once that video has been fully reviewed and whatnot, we'll typically either put it on our Coursera course, which is the main platform that we publish all of our courses on. But then for other smaller one-off projects, we do have a service, WarpWire, which is similar to a kind of a YouTube for Duke University that is protected by a shibboleth integration, or every person at Duke has their own network ID, and then we can restrict videos through that network ID. So that's kind of the main workflow.
Okay, and should we go on to
yeah.
WarpWire at this point?
So the WarpWire, this is a look at the mobile deployment of it. You can see that the leftmost panel includes kind of a library of different videos that a user might have uploaded themselves or other peers might have uploaded for them. And then you can actually just go into view one of those videos. You can play it back through the player in the browser there. You can copy it to another user's media library. So there's different libraries, and you can copy videos from one to another. And then you can even embed them in a WordPress blog or some other platform.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, well, let's move on. I guess I did this a little bit out of order, Gary. So I'm going to jump to you next, if that's all right.
Okay.
Let's take a look at what you're doing at Keck.
All right. So this is our Facebook Live show called Escape. This is actually for Season 2 next year. What we realized, as I said before earlier, is that we wanted to really create a well-produced, science-based mentoring show that would connect to students all across the country. And so there are three main technologies that I really want to talk about and focus on here. We got this legend over here. And so the blue is the NewTek NDI tools. Now, I don't know, is anybody familiar with NewTek's NDI? So they're free tools, and they're amazing because they're low latency, high quality, IP-based transmission. And so we're using the NDI monitor to send PowerPoint over to our teleprompter over here. We can also, through NewBlue FX Titler Live, send our titles over to our teleprompter monitor, and then also our confidence monitor so our hosts can see what's going on, as well as to Wirecast. We've been testing with PTZ Optics, which is a PTZ robotic camera, NDI HX camera. So the latency latency, it's a high efficiency model, and that allows us to send that signal to Wirecast, and we have full control over these cameras. It's really amazing. So we have one now, we're going to get 3. It's only 1080 resolution, but it's enough for us to do what we need to do. And then for streaming, obviously we have a backup with the Adamus recorder, and we really love, and I would love to hear also from Jonathan how the Wowza Clearcaster is working for them, but it's working very well for us. We get the talent view so they can see the Facebook comments, and then we send it out to Facebook Live. And the main feature that we're getting a lot of success is through cross-posting. So we have our main escape page, and then we have 2 different student programs. One which is LA HIP CHLA, Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, has some students, high school students, on this page. And then we have an undergraduate program, a national program called Step Up. And these cumulatively about 500 or so participants who are involved in this. And our idea is really to connect this page to our USC Keck page, maybe even on price, maybe through the NIH or Natural Institutes of Health. So really, it's sending all these all your videos to all these approved pages, and it's really been transformational in terms of our reach.
Let me jump in with 2 notes. One, it's a bit of an eye chart, and I recognize that. And 2, I noticed a few of you trying to take pictures. We will have a PDF available afterwards that you can download. If you go back and see the program on the Streaming Media West conference site, you'll see a PDF posted there that you'll be able to download. Okay, carry on. Do you want to continue with that, or jump into the video next?
Yeah, and we'll just show an example of how our show plays out. We'll just show a little bit of the clip using some of polling and Facebook comments within our show.
Okay.
I just wanted to take a quick poll to see who the audience is and who the students who are watching are. So it looks like it's a good mix, mostly from Step Up. Oh, okay, so it's actually pretty even. So we have more questions from the audience. So Bimnet is asking, hi Dr. Cass, would you advise students to pursue careers in government to secure the future of science?
It's actually a very interesting question, because there are many routes that scientists can take in order to advance their careers. If you are just curious and you want to know, then you're better off in an academic setting. You can really study what you would like to do.
We have other questions?
Okay.
Oh my God.
So it's your daughter?
It's my daughter.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for joining us today.
We would like
So that's just an
that
example
everybody
of a little bit of the program. We actually had a full season last spring, and that was our last show that we did with Dr. Cast, and it was very successful in terms of really getting engagement. All of the graphics that you see is all through NDI, through Titler Live, through another colleague of mine who is basically getting the social media feed, making sure that the questions are relevant, and we also have an IFB, so I'm communicating to the host and co-host so they know that a question's coming in or if we need to move things along. So there's also polling, which you just saw, which there's a reaction polling and then a 3-card polling as well.
Okay, great, thanks. And Jonathan, let's go on to yours.
Okay, sure. Those wrong slides.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's unfortunate. These are the old slides,
Old
right?
slides, yeah.
Okay, that's going to make it a little bit challenging.
Okay. I can still kind of talk through it if you'd like.
Are these close enough to work with, or do you want to just talk without them?
Sure, yeah, I can make it work.
Okay.
I won't talk too much about this. This is pretty standard. We'll make sure the new slide's on the recording, but this is just our typical offline production workflow. It's pretty standard. You have a camera, you have an offline editor, you encode it, and you send it out to whatever platform you want to be. Obviously, we're using different platforms now. only thing I'll say about offline production, and I'm happy to talk to anyone if anyone has offline production requirements or needs, is that we also are doing podcasting now. We shoot all, if it's an offline video, promotional video, we're all in 4K using a Blackmagic camera. And if we're doing an event, we're all 1080p. And by shooting in 4K, we can do punch-in and punch-outs, multiple cameras with one camera. And if we're doing an event, we stick all in 1080p. But it's a pretty typical offline production workflow. You guys are all pretty familiar with this. From the streaming side,
sorry,
yeah,
the next
no
slide. Got it. Next one? Okay.
What LMS are you using?
So we are, I believe we are still on Moodle. I'm not really an academic intern, but I believe we're still on Moodle with 2U running it with Zoom as the video conferencing platform. So Zoom is, and then Moodle is the back end LMS. Those are it.
Yes. I'll, if you want to keep talking.
Sure.
Just vamp a little.
Okay.
I'll bring him up
Anyway,
there.
Now from the live stream perspective, I think what's important to note is it depends on what event we're doing and how much power we need to put behind it. Depends on how we actually stream it. Essentially, we'll start off with a bunch of cameras on the left-hand side. Usually, because it's a live streaming event, we're obviously not doing 4K. We're going to be shooting in 1080p. We do have the capacity to allow cameras to talk long distances via Wi-Fi if need be. Traditionally, though, we'll just run SDI cables if we can, but we do have the capability to use ad hoc Wi-Fi using Teradek technology. We then will go into either a TriCaster. If it's a full-blown event, we need multi-camera switching for our encoder. Or sometimes we will also throw it and feed it into a Wowzer Clearcaster, depending on what we need. We are switching more to Wowzer Clearcaster because of its tight integration with Facebook Live. But we also have been very happy with the new Tech TriCaster because it's also a full-blown switcher. So our recent use case has been we'll go into the new Tech TriCaster and there you go. And it will either be will either be the encoder or we'll send its SDI output into the Clearcaster and use the Clearcaster stream so that we get the best of both worlds. We have the Clearcaster reliable Facebook Live integration, and we have the new Tech TriCaster as a full-blown switcher. Then what we've seen in our shop is the ability to stream anywhere, regardless of what technology or lack thereof exists in the room. So we are using a combination of live view or video technology from Teradek to actually be able to stream video over cell-bonded connections. The live view is depending on what model you get, can be anywhere from a 2 to 7 bonded cell phone connection. And the video, depending on what model you get, once again, can be anywhere from a 2 to 4 bonded connection. Depends how robust we need to be. And that's been an effective way for us to stream regardless of what area we're located in. And then we'll go to a CDN. We will typically stream in 1080p, but sometimes we'll do it on 720. And then we'll go into one of the providers there in the bottom. Essentially, as you can see, Facebook Live is a huge component for us. RTMP streaming and HTML embed for our website, so that we can all stream the website as well to go to Facebook Live. We have moved away. Our new streaming provider will be Vimeo, which also, if you guys heard, just bought Livestream, and we like them. And it's a good use case if you don't have a Clearcaster because they will simulcast to Facebook for you. So the times where Clearcaster can be a little frustrating in the sense that they can't stream out to website directly. You have to go through their cloud provider and then out to your site, which is a little cumbersome at times. We will use Vimeo or Livestream. We'll go straight out to their servers for their website embed code, and then they will send it out to Facebook Live or YouTube simultaneously. Wistia and YouTube are offline platforms. Wistia, Vimeo, and YouTube actually are all of our offline platforms. And then what we've recently gotten involved in is when you have a really high-profile event, using Brightcove's technologies to basically do real-time live clipping on the fly. So while the stream is going, we can have someone sit on a laptop plugged into a web browser and pull, go back in time from the live stream, pull a 10, 30-second clip out and send it straight to social media. Because now my shop is getting more involved in the marketing end, so we're trying to find effective ways to leverage our streams to the social media space. And building on what Gary said earlier, because some of these events, let's face it, were education, are not always as engaging as we would like them to be, what we have also done is we've integrated into our live stream flow an offline component, which is why you still see Premiere and Avid there. I gotta say that we're like 98% Premiere. We just use Avid's backend storage these days. Avid, as an editor, has become a little defunct for us, but we still use their storage technology. We will create what we call a highlight reel. So for every event we do, we will distill it down to a 3-minute trailer, essentially, and then we will push that trailer out to our YouTube platform and to our website, and then we market the actual trailer, not the full event. So our marketing scheme is the 3-minute trailer or the short clips, live clips on Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, and that's how we actually market. And that's how our goal to increase engagement. Yeah, I think that's really about it. We are moving forward into doing, and our big focus, like I said earlier, is trying to find ways to distill it down where a simplistic crew can do it, like a one camera straight up to Facebook Live, or if someone wants to do their own interview, we're using Wistia's soapbox technology. We can open a web browser and just do a quick little video message or a little presentation right on their computer, which is really basic and has some basic switching capacities. So we're moving more in the realm of trying to still support the big productions, but have easy and quick ways to go make it more simplistic for smaller events.
Got it. Great.
Quick question for Jonathan.
Yeah.
Have you used any captioning for any of your live events? I was just curious if.
So we looked into it. We haven't done it yet.
Okay.
What we tend to do with captioning is we'll actually caption post-event because that way we can cut out all the dead space and we use rev.com for that.
Okay.
But we can do live captioning. We just haven't found a need for it. But
Actually, I have a question about that because I had understood that well, maybe here's my problem. Is USC a California-funded college?
No, we're private.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I was going to say I know all the publicly funded
Correct.
schools have had a clear issue with getting captioning going in the last year because of their requirements.
ADA, correct. We don't have that requirement, so we're kind of exempt from that. Our policy thus far has been that we offer accommodations for students who need in the classroom setting and in the live production setting. Anything that's a marketing campaign, marketing video or promotion video or giving student content about why they want to come to USC or recruiting or that kind of stuff, we'll close caption it. Mm-hmm. But on the live stuff, no, not really.
Okay. Yeah. Do you see yourself going that way? I mean, is it?
So there's been talk about it. I think the problem is that until it's a mandate, no one wants to spend the money to archive the old catalog and then move forward with it.
Yeah.
So actually moving forward with ADA captioning is really easy. There's a ton of good tools out there that do live captioning. The problem is the old catalog. How you take your however many videos you have on YouTube and do those. And our rough estimate from Rev and 3Play, even on a bulk rate, was still close to like $80,000 of captioning because of how many hours of content we have. So,
right.
That's the big stickler. So I think if we were to move it through it, we'd probably make a distinction that anything from that date forward
that makes sense.
would be captioned.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I was kind of interested because, I think as all of you walked through this, you showed various technologies that you might use for various steps. Like you had, like 6 cameras on the capture side, and here you've got, live view and video and TriCaster and ClearCaster, and I'm just wondering, how do you what drives that decision based on where you are? Is it based on cost, or what drives you to use like a video versus a live view as an example, Jonathan?
Video, I think, could handle where we know we're not in a really bad cell area. We know we're going to have 1 or 2 providers that are going to have really good reception, like AT&T or Sprint,
Mm-hmm.
Or we have a semi-decent Wi-Fi as reliable backup, like USC Wi-Fi or some local Wi-Fi's backup. So it's not as robust. We know we're going to have good reception, or we have a 1-camera shoot, because that thing can sit on a hot shoe on a camera, literally take HDMI in and go straight out to Facebook Live. So like 1-camera shoots, or we're not worried as much about quality. But when we did a shoot actually, ironically, at Raging Waters, which is out in the boondocks of San Dimas, and we had no reception, so we actually had to build a custom live view with 7 SD cards that matched the coverage that was there in the area. Wow. And each streaming provider only gave us like a couple hundred kilobits, maybe 120 kilobits, but bonded over time 7, we got a reliable 1.5 MIP stream. Wow. So for us, the streaming technology purely depends on the VIP nature of the stream, the content, and how reliable and confident we're in the area. Mm-hmm. If that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, were you going to say something?
Separate but related, one of the interesting things that I'm really fascinated in, and we're exploring right now, especially with NDI, is the ability to use PTZ cameras as a replacement for, a shooter or AV tech in a lecture capture situation or even small classroom. And it's just very costly to overhaul some of these old classrooms and old technology. But the infrastructure in many universities, including USC, they've spent boatloads on network infrastructure. And we're, I think, 300 megabits download and 400 upload. So we have a tremendous amount of bandwidth to play with, and we're really finding a need to get these cameras to capture small meetings and that sort of thing. But we just don't have the resources. So hopefully NDI will be like a solution for that.
And Billy and I will say, I'm sure if any of you work for academic universities, academic universities have a huge amount of bandwidth. Like I said, we're on internet too, so we have tons of bandwidth. I think on the main campus, we're getting gigabit down, up, down, so we're doing really well with that. If you have access to high-speed infrastructure like we do at USC, I agree with Gary. Anything you can do that's IP-based, like all of our classrooms now, I'm not in the classroom end, but I'm involved in design a little bit. All the controls are all over IP. They're all being controlled via IP, various delivery systems. Even the video signals are being converted to IP and sent up. So the more you can do over IP, the better, especially if you have robust infrastructure. We only use those when we're shooting off campus. Like on campus, we'll find a jack and plug in because why wouldn't you, right? Internet too. But if you have it, try to leverage IP conversion as much as possible because we're even playing with the idea similar to what Gary's doing. We're playing out the idea of being able to. So we have a small studio on campus. I call it a studio. It's really just a green wall that's kind of sound dampened, but I've turned it into a studio. And we're playing the idea of feeding our camera into the data jack and controlling from our office, so we can do a live 4K show as opposed to a live 1080p show.
Got it. Okay. Great.
And I know, I don't know if folks are familiar with Siena, but they have some tools that you can play with. I think there is some cost for that for global sort of NDI. So, I'd love to be able to do something where it's like, okay, I need to get to a professor at the main campus, and we're at a totally different network. But if we can, get to your studio, that would be great. So like that level of ability, infrastructure-wise, would be kind of amazing if you have that already at your university.
Okay. One other follow-up. I think I saw on a couple of slides where you say we can do 1080p, or in your case 4K, or 720p. Is that, I'm assuming that you're using adaptive bitrate streaming, and that's your maximum bitrate. Is that true, or are any of you using single bitrate delivery?
So we're single bitrate actually when we use the TriCaster. So that's the reason actually why we dumped Livestream, because their plugin was deprecating and only limiting us to 720p at 2 MIPS. Mm-hmm. So we're actually pulling out a full 1080p stream at 4 MIPS when we're streaming. The only time we use variable is if we are going to an encoder that we don't control, i.e. like the live view of the video, so that is doing dynamic VBR to make sure it can do its bonding correctly.
I get that on the ingest side, but on the delivery side, are your users forced to have a 4 megabit per second connection?
Oh no, I'm sorry. On the receiving side?
Yeah.
No, the receiving side, we make sure that we turn on variable bitrate and based on whatever platform and internet connection you have.
So HLS or Dash.
Exactly,
or
right.
Okay.
It'll downgrade based on whatever you have. Correct.
Gary, how about you? Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Mitch?
Yeah, mostly what I produce is offline production, so it's a single bit rate when it's,
okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. So when I look at these, and I look at some of the slides, and the slides look pretty complex when I see all the gear that's there, and I realize that if you were to pick out a specific scenario, it might be just sort of, I think, for instance, you had iPhones, or, you had mobile phones as a capture device. I could see where you might be able to say, I go from my iPhone to my Wirecast to here, and it's a really simple workflow. But I could also see where I'd look at one of those slides and go, oh my God, that's so complex. As an educator just jumping into it, I might, completely go, I don't even want to start there because it looks so imposing, So if when you think about it, and you think about possible educators who are tuning in today to this session, and they're going, oh, I just want to get started with something simple. Are the workflows getting more complicated? Are they getting simpler? Or is it yes and yes? Or, where would you put the answer to that?
I think in terms of the videos that we produced at Duke, when we started, it was a lot more complicated for instructors than we are now. Mostly because we gave them a lot of the tools just to do it themselves, essentially. Now, as we focused on scaling the production, having the instructors was always kind of it kept us from actually, it was a bottleneck from producing as much as we want. But that being said, I think it's, if you just want to produce some educational videos very quickly, it's really not too difficult. With a pretty simple screen capture application like all Macs have a QuickTime, which will do a screen capture. But then even using something like Camtasia ScreenFlow, you can just hit record and include a webcam video of yourself, and it's already pretty much matched together. There's a lot of editing tools that are built into that, and then from there it's just a matter of hitting export and uploading to your platform of choice.
Cool.
I agree. I think for the individual end, it's gotten a lot easier. I actually highly recommend Soapbox is really great by Wistia, or Camtasia is also really good. I think on the individual end, it's gotten easier. I think on the professional end, it's gotten more complicated. So I'd say it's easier on the lower end, but on the professional end, it's gotten more complicated because of all the encoding and how you have to get there and that kind of thing. I mean, you have tools that do more of it easier now, but I still think it's a pretty complex workflow for that full, robust professional quality, which is why my big thing is when a professor comes to me and says, I want to do this, or a department says, we don't have the money to hire you, can we do it on our own, and I say, okay, you're going to go out, buy a little camera and stick a tripod on it and shoot it yourself, that's fine, but my big thing is just invest in technology to get good audio. Like that, and that's so easy to do nowadays. I mean, you can get a little mic that plugs right into your 1/8" jack on your consumer-grade camera, or you can get a USB microphone that plugs into your computer, so you don't have to use your webcam's built-in microphone. Because what we found is that anything that doesn't come through us for the high-level professional side, oh, there you go, there's a slide. If the audio is good, your users will deal with a lot of crappy video.
Yes.
We'll deal with low quality. We'll deal with dropouts. We'll deal with cuts. They'll even deal with out of sync. We did a seminar just a day where we had a faculty meeting where we had to stream it through a video conferencing platform. So I didn't put that slide up. I didn't bring that slide with me. But essentially, we put our professional camera into Zoom. So we got a little Blackmagic encoder that went into Thunderbolt into our laptop and did everything through Zoom. Unfortunately, we're using professional gear with a video conferencing solution, so the sound was about a second off, right? You were watching high-quality videos, 720p, and the sound was a little bit off, but we had professional mics plugged in through our camera coming to us through SDI, and no one complained. So, but if the sound is off, or they can't hear, or they hear background noise, your users will get, no matter what the use case now, will get very frustrated quickly. So I think, as a starting point, I always tell people invest in making sure your audio is good, no matter what you do, and then the rest you'll learn on the fly.
Right. Let me see. We haven't had any questions from the audience, and if there are any, I'd love to hear them now because we have time for about one question. Yes, sir.
I just want to find out, do you stream more than you just produce some of the audio productions, or do you stream lectures to various students as well?
So I think Dario can better answer that.
Can you repeat the question, too?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I should do that. I do this all the time. I should do that. The question is, do we stream lectures, or do we just stream events, correct?
Do you stream live to various students?
Right.
Or do you just do a production and upload that?
Okay, so the question is, we stream live to various students, we just do the production and upload. So for us, we do both. And I'm sure Guy can talk more about the student end. We have our distance learning side, which streams to students all around the world. I think we're transitioning to Zoom. And when we do events, we'll live stream to everywhere. Our last event we just did, we did a summit on school safety, and we had 11 countries tune in. And we used Brightcove because it was a high-profile event. And then we also do offline. So we're doing all three. The ratio depends on, on my side, I'm less on the academic end, so I'm doing more, I'm like 50% events and 50% offline production. But I think Gary's much more on the student end.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we're doing lecture capture constantly. And, it's either for face-to-face courses, in a flipped classroom setting where they need to look at the content, as Chris was saying beforehand. But as I said, a lot of the streaming is ramping up. People are very much interested in being able to do YouTube and Facebook Live, and in many cases, to go on Jonathan's point around technology, for those who can't afford us or who don't have the time, I just say, you know what, you have a great iPhone camera. Press Facebook Live, and you can record your meeting that way, or, and so I think, for certain instances, we're able to really allow the individuals and the students and faculty to take the technology on their own, especially when it comes to streaming.
Yeah, I think what's interesting too that I just found out about recently, that even PowerPoint now has a recording tab that's not it's hidden by default, but it allows you to capture your screen, capture the slides, capture yourself, basically do a whole mini lecture right within PowerPoint and publish it directly to your platform of choice. So kind of interesting. I saw, I'm going to take one more last quick question in the back and then we're going to wrap it up. Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry, what?
Which video platform do you use?
So Coursera has its own embedding platform, but for WarpWire, that was a service that we, so again, WarpWire is kind of our YouTube version that we have at Duke. We actually collaborated with them to build that platform from the ground up, but it was, they are an independent vendor that is outside of us. I think that's been a growing trend, at least at Duke, is it just was kind of unsustainable for us to develop our own platforms, for us to kind of share, whether it's other streaming services or in this case WarpWire, and it's been very difficult to kind of keep up with what other vendors were doing with their particular platforms. So that's kind of where we're headed, is more out of house platforms. WarpWire, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be in the slides, but it's WARPWIRE. All right. Oh, sorry.
If it helps, what we've seen is that so many online providers like Vimeo, take your pick, the storage is so cheap for a very nominal fee that I would almost recommend don't store your video on site unless you absolutely need to for like a ship protection or protect copyright content kind of thing, Because why would you? I mean, we can pay $400 a year and get 7 terabytes from Vimeo. That's plenty of space for that. Right. So our model is, distance storing is a different ballgame, but in general, we don't store the final product on site, just except for archive. We put it on it, just like them, we put it on different content, right? Because online storage, because MP4 is so small, you get a lot up there.
Yeah. All right, thank you. So one logistical note, once we wrap up here, coffee will be served on the expo floor just across the hall. But in the meantime, thank you to our panelists and to all of you for showing up for this session.